Here is the culturally adapted American English version of the novel. Chapter 1. The Do-Over. This isn't the bus to kindergarten. I want to get off. For those of you worried about the pacing, don't be. All the good stuff is coming right up, winky face. I was slumped in an Italian leather executive chair, one hand pinching the bridge of my nose, while the other frantically scrolled through my phone's camera roll. On the screen, a guy with a rainbow-colored, scene kid haircut smirked back at me. The glint from the chrome heart's earring on his lobe was so sharp it made my eyes ache. Who can even understand this? I pull one all-nighter to write a 300-word takedown of the rogue CEO's captive heart on Goodreads. And the next thing I know, I wake up as the idiotic villain I roasted in the comment section every single day, Ethan Sawyer. Right now, my entire being is consumed by regret. A deep, profound regret. The more I savored tearing the character apart in my reviews, the more my head thrums now. The original Ethan didn't just share my name. His talent for self-destruction was on par with a golden retriever on a cocaine bender. Kidnapping the female lead, trying to sabotage publicly traded companies, basically doing the cha-cha slide all over the protagonist's last nerve. He successfully collected the entire bad-ending trifecta of bankruptcy, homelessness, and getting killed off by the heroine. I stared at the scene kid in the mirror. Was that really me? This is completely unscientific. I wailed, yanking at the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple mess on my head. Aren't villains supposed to be wolves in bespoke suits? Sophisticated monsters? What is this limited edition, My Chemical Romance Rejects Skin? It's a crime this guy wasn't cast as a Power Rangers villain. I immediately decided to launch the Villain's Redemption Project. First stop, the most expensive salon in New York City. I slapped my Amex Centurion card on the front desk. Give me your top stylist, the best you've got. A man in a custom-tailored suit, the salon's creative director, approached and cradled my multicolored disaster of a hairdo, his eyes welling with tears. It's been 3 years. Ever since you became obsessed with the emo scene aesthetic, our salon has topped the worst hair in high society list for 36 consecutive months. 2 hours later, I was staring at a devastatingly handsome man in the mirror, lost in thought. The sharp eyebrows, the piercing eyes, the pale complexion and long legs, that subtle hint of brokenness behind the expensive haircut. Are we sure I didn't get the script for the tortured, gorgeous protagonist by mistake? My phone suddenly vibrated off the table, hit by a tsunami of 99+ notifications from a group chat named the Bankruptcy Brothers. Chad Kensington Jr. Ethan, my man. Front row at the Victoria's Secret show tonight. I need a stage for this new diamond I bought. Blake Montgomery. Heard you painted your Rolls Royce hello, kitty pink. Count me in. Spencer Vanderbilt. Bro just opened a new rooftop bar. You have to skydive to get in. You coming? I silently changed the group chat's name to NYC Suicide Squad and posted an announcement. On the path to reformation. Do not disturb. Your iced Americano, sir. The butler, gliding in with a gold-rimmed coffee cup, saw me and stumbled, nearly crashing into the doorframe. Why your hair? I ran a hand through my freshly trimmed black hair and tried for a roguish grin, but it came out as an awkward scratch of the head. Felt like trying out what it's like to be a normal human being. After the butler tearfully mumbled, "The young master has finally grown up," and backed out of the room, I opened my banking app with a trembling hand. My finger left a blur on the screen as I tried to count the zeros. 1, 10, 100, 1,000. Oh my God, there are enough zeros in this balance to play a game of Candy Crush. Just as I was about to put my phone down, the screen lit up with a ding. The lock screen was a picture of a breathtakingly beautiful woman. A video call request popped up, and when the name Claire appeared on the screen, my hand spasmed, sending the phone flying in a perfect parabola. I stared at the photo, sucking in sharp breath. Those picturesque eyes, that ethereal beauty. This had to be the original Ethan's foster sister and fiancée, Claire Sterling. The same woman who turned corporate warfare into a blood sport, but was ultimately driven to jump off a building by the main characters because of a terminal case of lovesickness. Ethan, a cool, sophisticated voice drifted up from the floor. On the screen, Claire Sterling, wearing a silk nightgown, was in the middle of a face mask routine. I heard you booked out the entire salon. Are you? Her words died in her throat. The face mask fell off with a soft plop into a glass of red wine. Claire, whose bare face was still stunning enough to stop traffic, leaned closer to the screen. Who is this? How much do you want for kidnapping my brother? Claire, it's me. I scrambled to shove my face into the camera's view. Just last week I used your Hermes Birkin to carry my chihuahua. The air froze for 3 seconds, followed by the sound of a glass shattering on the other end of the video call. Claire shakily switched to her rear-facing camera. Behind her was her office, and an entire wall was covered in my scene kid art photos. She usually slept at the office when she was busy. I'm coming home. Right now, she said, her voice suddenly so gentle it was like dripping honey. I've got a new sports car for you. A Porsche. I watched the screen go dark, shivering uncontrollably. In the novel, this woman was a stone-cold killer who could smile while sending a competitor to the ICU. The look on her face just now clearly screamed, what do I do if my brother's been possessed by a demon? Asking for a friend, it's urgent. A short while later, the roar of a powerful engine echoed from outside. I didn't even need to look. It was Claire, back in her red Ferrari. This penthouse was usually just for the two of us. Our parents had arranged it that way, hoping we would cultivate our relationship. It was a shame the original Ethan was such a blockhead, ignoring a perfect woman like Claire to chase after that phony, green tea heroine Jessica Evans. The sound of the lock turning sent a jolt through me. I looked up and was nearly blinded. Claire Sterling strode in on a pair of stiletto heels, her long legs accentuated by a black pencil skirt that seemed to defy physics. Don't even get me started on her stunning figure and impossibly narrow waist. Was the original Ethan suffering from brain tumor? How could he pass up this top-tier fiancée for that pretentious little actress? Ethan, what are you spacing out for? Claire had already slipped into her house slippers and, without warning, sat down on my lap, cupping my face in her hands to inspect it from every angle. You're acting strange today. Did someone swap out my Ethan? The faint scent of her perfume drifted into my nostrils. I leaned in close to her ear and blew a soft breath of air. You have a small, red mole right below your right breast, don't you, Claire? A shiver ran through her entire body. Her face turned a deep shade of crimson, and she went limp in my arms as if all her bones had dissolved. H, how did you know? It was a detail mentioned in the novel, a very private feature of Claire's that not even the original Ethan knew about. I decided to press my luck. I not only know that, but I also know that your favorite scent is jasmine because it's the perfume your mother used to wear when you were little. Her pupils dilated slightly, and her ruby lips trembled. I've never told anyone that. I seized the opportunity, whispering in her ear, because I've been secretly paying attention to you all this time, Claire. The warm air from my breath sent another shiver through her. But then, my attention was drawn to her feet. She was wearing nude-colored stockings today, her toes perfectly rounded and glowing like pearls under the light. While I didn't consider myself to have any particular fetishes, my hand moved of its own accord. Ethan, Claire purred, her eyes half closed like a contented cat. Why are you suddenly so forward? You used to run for the hills whenever I tried to flirt with you. Her ankle was slender and delicate. I couldn't resist giving her foot a few more gentle squeezes. Just as I was about to escalate things, she caught my hand as it snaked toward the collar of her blouse. Her voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Wait. I'm not ready yet. I chuckled and planted a soft kiss on her rosy cheek. You're always the one teasing me. Getting cold feet now. Claire's face grew even redder. She buried her head in my chest like an ostrich. I swept her up into my arms, carrying her bridal style toward the bedroom, giving her a little bounce for effect. You need to eat more, Claire. You're so light. She yelped as I tossed her onto the bed, her fingers twisting the hem of her skirt nervously. This is all happening so fast. Even though she said that, the look in her glittering eyes clearly said, if this is what my baby brother wants, then of course his big sister has to give it to him. I held back a laugh and simply held her, kissing her forehead. Don't worry, I won't cross that line before we're married. Claire visibly relaxed, though a flicker of disappointment was still hiding in her eyes. She nuzzled against me like a little kitten, greedily inhaling the fresh mint scent from my shirt. She froze only when a certain part of me pressed against her. Claire, I said, quickly changing the subject, didn't you just sign that land deal with a multinational corporation? She looked up in surprise. Why are you suddenly interested in company business? Then, she added with a touch of pride, yes, I just acquired that plot in downtown Brooklyn. We're planning to develop a major commercial complex. Her eyes lit up. The prospects are amazing. We're projecting a profit of at least $3 billion. My heart tightened. The original novel was insane. How could they not have realized the multinational was a shell company? But I had no proof, and the frustration was eating me alive. In the book, this multinational was a complete sham that ended up costing Sawyer Holdings tens of billions. I asked casually, "Can you transfer that plot of land to me?" Claire's expression instantly darkened. Are you going to give it to Jessica Evans? Her voice was so hoarse, it was heartbreaking. Her reaction startled me. But then I remembered that the original Ethan had constantly tried to win Jessica over, even going so far as to embezzle company resources for her. No, enough. Claire stood up, her eyes red-rimmed. I thought you were different today, but you're still doing this for her. Her voice broke. Do you have any idea how much it hurts me every time I see you chasing after her? My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. The novel never detailed Claire's feelings, and seeing her genuine pain now, I realized just how much damage the original Ethan had caused. I hadn't expected her to be so perceptive. I rushed to reassure her. You're the only one for me. Really? She shot her head up, and thwack, her forehead collided with my chin. Ow, I'm so sorry. So sorry. She scrambled to get up. Do we need to go to the hospital? I pulled her back down. I'm fine. Seeing her panic, I couldn't help but marvel at how easily she could be placated. You little heartbreaker, she said, her cheeks puffing out. How many girls have you said that to? I immediately raised my hand in a solemn oath. Only you, if I'm lying, may lightning strike. No. She quickly covered my mouth. Don't say that. Then she asked, her eyes wide and hopeful. Then why do you want the land for Jessica Evans? I've been harassing her for so long. I just want to make a clean break. I explained. Give her the land, and we'll be even. Claire's eyes lit up. Only $200 million to get rid of that toxic relationship. What a bargain, she thought. But on the surface, she put on a magnanimous air. Yes, well, the Sawyers should always be generous. She immediately called her assistant to have the contract sent over. The young assistant wailed on the other end of the line. Now, but it's 10 o'clock at night. After hanging up, Claire let out a sly little laugh, like a cat that had just stolen a canary. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Thanks for coming all this way, I said, taking the document folder from the assistant at the door. The young woman stared at me, her mind racing. Oh my God, when did Mr. Sawyer get so handsome? How did I never notice before? Oh, of course, she stammered, walking away but looking back every 3 steps. Upstairs, Claire narrowed her eyes, watching the assistants retreating back with a thoughtful expression. It's time to hire a male assistant. I gently placed the folder on the nightstand and noticed that the hem of Claire's skirt was crooked. I reached over and smoothed it out for her. She sleepily opened her eyes, a smile playing at the corners. My little Ethan is such a gentleman. Most guys are trying to take a girl's clothes off, but you're helping me get dressed. My throat tightened. I pulled her into an embrace. She had that faint, sweet scent that girls just seem to have. Claire snuggled comfortably into my arms and drifted back to sleep. I rubbed my eyes as the morning sun streamed through a gap in the curtains. My internal clock woke me up at the usual time. Turning my head, I saw Claire sitting on the edge of the bed, pulling on a pair of socks. Her slender fingers pinched the edge of the pure white cotton, easing it over her toes with a grace that looked like a work of art. The sunlight coated her in a golden halo, making even the fine hairs on her earlobes visible. You're awake. Did I wake you, Ethan? She noticed my gaze and turned to smile at me. In the morning light, her eyes looked like they were filled with starlight, her eyelashes casting tiny shadows on her cheeks as she blinked. Not at all, I said, waving my hand. Are you going for a run, Claire? I remembered the novel mentioning her morning run habit. I am. Her eyes widened slightly, surprised I would know that about her. I'm coming with you. I threw off the covers and hopped out of bed, my bare feet landing on the soft carpet. Claire's expression shifted to one of complete shock. She tilted her head. It's a miracle you're not sleeping until noon, but now you're becoming disciplined? She then broke into a smile, her eyes curving into crescents. All right, let's go. We stood side by side at the bathroom sink, brushing our teeth, our comically foamy mouths reflected in the mirror. Claire was about half a head shorter than me, and her loose-fitting pajamas had a slightly open neckline, revealing a delicate collarbone. I caught a glimpse and nearly choked on my toothpaste. After we washed up, Claire changed into a form-fitting workout outfit. As she bent over to adjust the cuff of her pants, the hem of her top shifted up, revealing a sliver of her pale thigh. My eyes were helplessly drawn to it. "Want to touch, Ethan?" she asked, suddenly straightening up. She'd caught my stare, a mischievous smirk playing on her lips. I hadn't expected her to be so direct, but since she offered, I didn't hesitate to place my hand right there. The sensation was even better than I'd imagined. Smooth as jade, but with a firm elasticity unique to an athletic woman. "Hey," Claire yelped, her face instantly turning a shade of scarlet. She jumped back like a startled rabbit. "Why, you actually did it." I held up my hands innocently. "Didn't you invite me to, Claire?" I was, she stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. The tips of her ears so red they looked like they might bleed. "I was just teasing. I didn't think you'd actually do it." Watching her flustered state, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. This sister of mine, who was always so composed and enjoyed teasing me, had such an adorable side to her. "Come on, let's go for that run," I said, taking her hand and feeling the slight dampness of her palm. Claire sat on the bench by the door, her legs dangling and swinging gently. Her white ankle socks hugged her slender ankles, her toes forming cute outlines at the tips. On a strange impulse, I knelt and took her foot in my hand. "Hey," she yelped, instinctively trying to pull her foot back. "Ethan, what are you doing?" "Helping you with your shoes," I said calmly, though my heart was pounding like a drum. Her foot felt weightless in my palm, and I could feel its warmth through the cotton sock. I gently slipped her white running shoe on and tied the laces. She was quiet the entire time, but I could feel her gaze fixed on the top of my head. We jogged along the tree-lined path of the residential community. It was early summer, and the morning air was filled with the faint scent of flowers. Claire's running form was perfect, her ponytail swinging rhythmically behind her. I struggled to keep up, and after 3 laps, I was already gasping for breath. "Maybe we should stop?" she asked, slowing down to look at my sweaty forehead with concern. She pulled a handkerchief embroidered with a crescent moon from her pocket and gently dabbed my face. I took the handkerchief from her. It carried her unique scent, a mix of sun-dried cotton and fresh citrus. "You smell so good, Claire," I said, deliberately taking a deep sniff. "What are you talking about?" she exclaimed, her cheeks flushing as she tried to snatch it back. I deftly dodged her and started running again. "Come on, I can keep going." Claire caught up to me, running alongside. "Not bad, Ethan. What made you suddenly decide to start working out?" "Gotta make sure I can keep up with you, don't I?" I winked at her with a wicked grin. She paused for a second before understanding my meaning, then pinched my side in mock anger. "You are impossible." "Ow, ow, ow, Claire." I cried out dramatically, even though she barely used any force. Claire suspiciously lifted the hem of my shirt to check, and seeing not even a red mark, she glared at me, her cheeks puffed out. "Ethan, you've gotten so bad. Always bullying your sister." Seeing that she was genuinely a little annoyed, I leaned in close to pacify her. "I'm sorry, Claire, you're the best." I gently tucked a windswept strand of her hair behind her ear. The simple gesture instantly softened her, and her eyes curved back into crescents. "That's more like it." Back at the penthouse, I was so exhausted I collapsed onto the sofa. Claire, though also covered in a thin layer of sweat, was in much better shape. "Rest up, Ethan. I'll go make you some breakfast," she said, turning to leave. I reached out and grabbed her wrist. "Don't go." I pulled her into my lap. Her body was warm from the workout, and the mix of faint sweat and her natural scent was surprisingly pleasant. Claire struggled lightly. "Don't hug me, I'm all sticky and gross right now." I buried my face in the crook of her neck and took a deep breath. "Nonsense. Even your sweat smells amazing, Claire." "You silver-tongued devil," she laughed, pushing me away, but her ears were already bright red. "I'm going to take a shower first." Watching her scurry into the bathroom, I felt a wave of happiness. My gaze fell upon the white socks she had taken off and left on the floor, and a strange idea popped into my head. "I'll wash your socks for you, Claire." I muttered to myself, picking them up. They were small and delicate, looking particularly dainty in my palm. The tips were slightly discolored from the sweat of her run. On a whim, I brought them to my nose and sniffed. Surprisingly, there was no foul odor. Instead, there was a faint, unique scent that belonged to Claire, like sun-drenched cotton candy. "Ethan," the bathroom door suddenly opened. Claire was drying her hair as she walked out, but her voice stopped abruptly when she saw what I was doing. The towel slipped from her hand and fell to the floor with a soft thud. Time seemed to freeze. I remained in that awkward pose, my mind a complete blank. I can explain," I said lamely, fumbling to toss the socks into the washing machine and hitting the start button. Claire looked at me with a complex expression, as if observing a newly discovered and very rare species of animal. She slowly walked over, bent down to pick up the towel, and then she burst out laughing. "Oh, Ethan," she said, trying to stifle her giggles, her shoulders shaking. "If you like them that much, I have plenty of clean pairs I can give you." "No, Claire, let me explain," I blurted out, flustered. "I was just checking if they needed to be hand-washed, and I accidentally—" Claire finally let loose, laughing so hard that tears formed in the corners of her eyes. She waved her hand, signaling me to stop. "I believe you, I really do." But the look on her face clearly said, "Keep trying. I'm entertained." The washing machine started to hum. I was so embarrassed I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. That image was now seared into Claire's memory forever. "Actually," Claire suddenly leaned in close, whispering in my ear, "those socks really did smell pretty good." I turned to her in shock, but she was already humming a tune as she headed to the kitchen, leaving me with only a mischievous silhouette. Sunlight filled the living room. The washing machine spun rhythmically, and the clatter of pots and pans came from the kitchen. I stood there, frozen, and came to a sudden realization. I might actually truly be a little bit of a creep. But the scarier part was, Claire didn't seem to mind. I sat at the dining table, a breakfast masterpiece prepared by Claire laid out before me. The fried eggs were perfect, their edges slightly crispy, giving off an irresistible aroma. The toast was golden brown, served with vibrant fresh jam. Milk swirled in a glass, topped with a sprinkle of crushed nuts. Every dish was a testament to her care, a feast for the eyes. Claire sat across from me, her chin resting in her hands, her eyes full of concern. She glanced at the document folder by my hand and asked softly, "Ethan, are you going to the Evans Corporation? Do you want me to go with you?" Her voice was a gentle, worried breeze. I reached out and patted her hand, feeling its soft, delicate texture, then leaned in to place a light kiss on her forehead. "Don't worry, I can handle this." I felt her stiffen for a moment before relaxing, a sweet warmth spreading through me. Claire bit her lip, still clearly anxious. "I have so much to deal with at the office, otherwise I'd really go with you. If you run into trouble, you have to promise you'll call me. Don't try to handle it all by yourself." I nodded seriously. "I know, Claire. You focus on your work. I've got this." Seeing her so earnest and concerned filled me with a sense of purpose. I had to get this right. After Claire left, I picked up the folder. "She's the heroine, the darling of fate in this world," I muttered to myself. "Maybe she can even turn this into a huge win. I hope you're ready for this gift, Jessica Evans." With that, I headed for the garage. Standing in front of a sleek, powerful sports car, I froze. The car was a beast, all aggressive lines and raw power, but I suddenly realized a critical problem. I had no idea how to drive it. I stood there, scratching my head in embarrassment, then closed my eyes and dug deep into the original Ethan's memories. After a moment, fragments of knowledge, the feel of the wheel, the roar of the engine, started to surface. I took a deep breath, slid into the driver's seat, and fired it up, pulling slowly out of the garage. The car was a magnet for attention. As I drove down Madison Avenue, women on the sidewalk stopped in their tracks, their squeals echoing in the air. When did Ethan Sawyer get so hot? Oh my God, that's a whole new level of charm. I think I'm in love. Forget it, I need a cold shower. Hearing that last one made the hair on my arm stand up. I had to admit, aside from being completely useless against the novel's protagonist, the original Ethan had a top-tier setup in every other respect. There were no security guards stopping me, no receptionist giving me attitude. I sailed smoothly through to the Evans Corporation. I walked straight into the lobby, my reflection staring back from the polished marble floor. The receptionist looked at me with a mixture of shock and reverence, quickly pointing me toward the elevators. I took the elevator straight to Jessica Evans's office. I pushed the door open to find her buried in paperwork. She looked up, her expression first one of surprise. "What happened to your scene kid hair? You used to look like a reject from some goth band. It's a shame you weren't cast as an extra in a Tim Burton movie. You clean up nicely, I'll give you that." Her tone was laced with mockery and disdain. I didn't get angry. Anger is a sign of weakness. I just smiled, my eyes scanning her. I had to admit, she was attractive, but in my mind, she didn't hold a candle to Claire. Mimicking the original Ethan's fawning tone, I said, "I heard you wanted that development plot in Brooklyn, Jesse. I got it for you from my sister." Jessica's expression transformed instantly. The disgust vanished, replaced by delighted surprise. "Really? Aren't you afraid your sister will kill you?" Her voice turned syrupy sweet, with a hint of a playful pout. I feigned nonchalance. "My sister spoils me rotten, you know that. Anything to make you happy, Jesse." Jessica thought for a moment. "In that case, I'll buy it from you at cost. I don't want you to get in trouble." She put on a show of concern, but I knew exactly what she was doing. If it weren't for the Sawyer family's influence scaring off other bidders, that land would have gone for at least $2 billion. Now she wanted it for the original, much lower price. The scheme was transparent. Still, I smiled. "I could never take your money, Jesse." She immediately put on a stern face. "If you don't take the money, I don't want to land." All right, I'll take it," I said quickly, "as long as you're happy." Inside, I was ecstatic. She was playing her games, but I was about to walk away with a cool $200 million, and the Sawyer family wouldn't lose a dime. It was a massive win for me. Jessica immediately summoned her lawyer and produced a contract. I fought to keep a straight face as I signed my name with a flourish. The moment the ink was dry, Jessica showed me the door. "You should go now, I'm very busy. And if the Sawyer family has any other scraps they don't want, be sure to bring them to me." I rolled my eyes internally. One incredibly smug thing to say. But I couldn't be bothered to argue. I just smiled and said, "Of course, Jesse. I'll let you get back to work." The second I stepped out of her office, my phone buzzed. $200 million had just been deposited into my account. I let out a low whistle. Jessica really was afraid I'd changed my mind. Inside her office, a board meeting was already underway. I stood outside the door, catching snippets of the sycophantic praise being heaped upon her. "Ms. Evans, you were brilliant, acquiring that land so easily. Yes, truly, such foresight and skill." I shook my head at the fawning and walked away. After leaving the Evans Corporation, I decided to surprise Claire. I knew she wasn't a fan of cliché red roses, so I did some digging and, after considerable effort, found a stunning bouquet of bird of paradise flowers. I had the florist write on the card, "Thinking of you, Claire. Your favorite little brother, Ethan." Meanwhile, back at her office, Claire was completely distracted. She sat at her desk, glancing at her phone, then staring out the window, a goofy smile alternating with a worried frown. Her young assistant stood by, utterly bewildered, wondering if her normally iron-fisted boss was developing a split personality. Just then, a knock came to the door. Claire snapped back to reality, her cool demeanor returning as she said flatly, "Come in." The receptionist timidly entered, holding the bird of paradise bouquet. "Ms. Sterling, these are for you." Claire frowned, her displeasure evident. "I thought I said no more flowers would be brought up here. How many times do I have to say it?" The receptionist turned pale, on the verge of tears. They're for Mr. Ethan Sawyer, ma'am. You said that anything regarding Mr. Sawyer should be brought to your attention immediately." Claire's expression shifted from stormy to sunny in an instant, a flash of delight in her eyes. She cleared her throat, masking her excitement. "You did well. Triple your salary this month." The receptionist nearly screamed with joy. In her mind, I had just been elevated to God-tier status, and she was already hoping I'd send flowers more often. She quickly handed over the bouquet and left, her heart soaring. Neither the assistant nor the receptionist recognized the flowers. They were used to seeing roses. The assistant leaned in curiously. "Ma'am, what kind of flowers are these?" Claire gazed at the bouquet, her eyes soft and focused. She personally arranged them in a vase, then patiently explained, "This is the bird of paradise. It symbolizes many wonderful things. Freedom, happiness, and grace. See how it looks like a crane, gazing elegantly into the distance. It represents a desire for a free and happy life. It also means good fortune and victory. Its unique shape and vibrant colors give off a positive energy, representing success in one's career or other endeavors. And most importantly, it can express unwavering love, symbolizing a devotion as faithful as that of a crane to its mate. The assistant gasped, "Wow, the meaning behind these flowers is amazing. I wish someone would send me flowers like these." Claire shot her assistant a look, a small smile playing on her lips. "Very good," she thought. "You get to keep your job." She turned her focus back to the flowers, a blissful smile spreading across her face, as if the entire world had melted away, leaving only this bouquet filled with love. Her assistant was shocked to see that the CEO, who was famous for being an ice queen, now had tears welling up in her eyes. Will I be seeing these flowers more often?" the assistant blurted out. Claire instantly resumed her CEO persona, giving her a cold glare. "Do you not have enough work to do?" The assistant shrank back, but made a mental note. The key to pleasing the boss was through flowers for Mr. Sawyer. Claire leaned back in her chair, her gaze fixed on the bird of paradise. She picked up her phone, hesitated, and then sent a text. At that moment, I was sitting in my car, imagining Claire's reaction to the flowers, a gentle smile spreading across my face. "Got the flowers. They're beautiful. What do you want for dinner tonight? I'll make it for you." After receiving Claire's text, I smiled and replied, frowny face, "Anything you make is my favorite." My fingers tapped lightly on the screen, as if I could see her subtle smile when she read my message. Putting my phone down, I began to seriously consider my future. As a transmigrator, my biggest advantage was knowing just how underdeveloped the gaming industry was in this world. In my past life, I was a top-tier programmer. Recreating phenomenal hits like Realm of Legends or Apex Predator would be a piece of cake. Time to get to work. I pulled up the original Ethan's asset list and found that he did, in fact, own a game development company. Although its current market value was a paltry $5 million, it was a ready-made platform. What moved me the most was that even though the company was consistently losing money, Claire kept pouring funds into it, a clear indulgence of the original Ethan's whims. I hummed a tune as I drove to the company's office. Located in a small building on the outskirts of the city, the company was small but had a lean staff. Most importantly, the employees were all handpicked by the Sawyer family, guaranteeing their loyalty. And Mr. Sawyer, the receptionist, was so shocked to see me walk in that she nearly knocked over her water cup. It was understandable. The original Ethan hadn't set foot in the office for over 6 months. I walked straight to the development department. Pushing the door open, I saw a few programmers huddled around a computer, the screen displaying a game that looked like Power Rangers versus cardboard monsters. My temples throbbed. The graphics were crude, the gameplay simplistic. In my original world, this wouldn't even pass for a free browser game. "Mr. Sawyer, what are you doing here?" A young man with black-rimmed glasses, who I later learned was Mark Peterson, scrambled to his feet. The others quickly stopped what they were doing. I didn't answer. I sat down at an empty workstation, and my hands flew across the keyboard. Code streamed down the screen like a waterfall. The room gradually fell silent, the only sound being the rhythmic clacking of the keys. 3 hours later, I stretched and sent a complete game design document and some of the core code to the company's group chat. What is this? Mark Peterson's eyes were wide as he stared at the screen. "A preliminary design for Realm of Legends," I said, standing up to stretch my stiff shoulders. "And I've also put together proposals for Apex Predator and Empire Forge." The entire department was silent, every single person glued to their screens as if they were looking at the Holy Grail. "Mr. Sawyer, this is unbelievable." A programmer with a small ponytail was so excited his voice trembled. "If we can make these games, they'll completely dominate the market." I nodded, satisfied. I immediately transferred $100 million to the company's account. From now on, the company is renamed Luna Entertainment. We're going all in on developing these games. All salaries are doubled. Lead members get a minimum of $1 million a year, and there will be profit-sharing bonuses when the projects are completed. "Luna Entertainment?" Mark repeated. Then a look of realization dawned on his face. He exchanged a knowing glance with the others. The name was just as cheesy as the main companies, Sawyer Holdings. But who were they to argue with the boss? Mr. Sawyer, aren't you worried we might? A young programmer began, trailing off. I smiled. You have to trust the people you hire. I trust your professionalism, and I trust in the Sawyer family's reputation. That last sentence made everyone in the room straighten their backs. When I left the company, the sky was turning orange. I checked the time. It was perfect for picking up Claire from work. I leaned against my Porsche in front of the Sawyer Holdings skyscraper, watching the employees stream out. When a familiar figure appeared through the revolving doors, I couldn't help but let out a whistle. Claire was wearing a sharp business suit, her hair loosely pinned up with a few stray strands framing her face, accentuating her long, elegant neck. She froze when she saw me, then quickened her pace. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" she asked, glancing around nervously, terrified of being seen by her employees. It was adorable. "Picking you up from work? Beautiful," I said, raising my voice intentionally, which made her jump. "What are you talking about?" she hissed, rushing to cover my mouth, her cheeks flushing a deep red. "We're in public." I seized the opportunity to plant a kiss on her palm. "So, does that mean I can call you that at home?" Claire shot me a glare, her face puffed up in annoyance, and quickly ducked into the passenger seat. She looked like a fluffed-up, angry kitten. Instead of going straight home, I took her to the largest gourmet market in the city. Claire had clearly never been to a place like this and looked around with wide-eyed curiosity. "Let's get some fish and make chipino," I said, leading her to the seafood section. The woman behind the counter eyed us with a smile as she cleaned the fish. "Young man, your girlfriend is very beautiful." "She's not my girlfriend," I said, pausing deliberately. I felt Claire's hand tense up in mine. "She's my fiancée." Claire's head snapped up, her eyes wide, her lips trembling slightly. The woman's smile grew wider. "Oh, what a handsome couple. Let me be the first to wish you a happy marriage." "Thank you for the kind words," I said, taking the clean fish. I noticed Claire was still in a daze and had to lead her by the hand as we continued our shopping. It wasn't until we had bought all the other ingredients that Claire seemed to snap out of it, muttering under her breath, "Who agreed to marry you?" On the way home, Claire stared out the window, but the bright red tips of her ears betrayed her true feelings. I couldn't resist teasing her. "Claire, do you like your chipino spicy or—" "Ethan, you know how to cook?" She suddenly turned her head, her eyes even wider. "Then why didn't you ever cook for me before? Did you stop loving me?" Her leap in logic made me laugh. "I only just learned recently. You're the absolute first person to taste my cooking, Claire." "Really?" she asked, narrowing her eyes suspiciously. I immediately raised my hand in an oath. "Cross my heart, or else." Okay, I believe you," she interrupted, a smile sneaking on her lips. Back home, we instinctively went into the kitchen together. Claire made her signature barbecue ribs and a simple salad, while I took charge of the chipino. The kitchen soon filled with an intoxicating aroma. "Want a taste?" I held up a piece of fish to her lips. She took a careful bite, and her eyes instantly lit up. "Delicious." She then looked at me skeptically. "Is this really your first time making this?" "Maybe I'm just a natural." I shrugged, which earned me a playful eye roll. At dinner, Claire ate with gusto, having 2 extra helpings. Seeing her so satisfied filled my heart with a warm glow. This was the life I wanted, cooking and eating with the person I loved, sharing the simplest of joys. "Don't throw that out," I said, stopping Claire as she was about to clear the leftovers. "It'll be great for making pasta tomorrow." Claire tilted her head. When did our family become so frugal? But despite her confusion, she obediently put the leftovers in the fridge. After dinner, we walked hand in hand through the neighborhood. The early summer evening breeze was gentle, carrying the faint scent of flowers. Claire sighed contentedly. "This is so nice." I leaned in close to her ear and whispered, "Once we have a little one, I'll walk with you like this every day." "WHO's having a baby with you?" she squeaked, jumping back like a startled rabbit, her face a deep crimson. I laughed and chased after her, tickling her sides. "Are you or are you not?" "Huh. Ha ha. Stop. I'll have one, all right? I'll have one," she shrieked with laughter, finally collapsing into my arms. Back at home, Claire fled into the bathroom, making sure to lock the door behind her. I leaned against the door and called out loudly, "Need help scrubbing your back?" "No, thank you," came her flustered shout from inside, accompanied by the sound of the faucet being turned on full blast. I shook my head with a smile and headed to the study. I still had to finish the detailed plan for the gaming company tonight, but the thought of Claire's shy face made all my fatigue melt away. The sound of the shower stopped. Claire emerged, drying her wet hair, the silk of her nightgown clinging to her body and outlining her graceful curves. "Ethan," she called out softly, her voice echoing gently in the empty bedroom. No answer. Claire frowned and padded barefoot through the rooms, searching for me. A sliver of light shone from under the study door. She pushed it open gently and saw me completely engrossed, staring at the computer screen, my fingers flying across the keyboard. She stood in the doorway, momentarily captivated. Under the lamplight, the profile of my face was sharp and defined, my slightly furrowed brow giving me a seriousness she rarely saw. She had never seen this side of me, focused, steady, nothing like the idle, spoiled heir who wasted his days. Claire quietly backed out of the room and returned a moment later with a stack of files, settling onto the sofa opposite me. And so we sat, one of us coding, the other reviewing documents. The only sounds in the study were the rhythmic tapping of the keyboard and the soft rustle of paper. Around midnight, we both stretched at almost the exact same time. "Are you finished? Are you finished?" The simultaneous questions made us look at each other and smile. Claire stood up, her nightgown swaying with a movement, appearing almost translucent in the light. My gaze followed her involuntarily, my throat tightening. "What are you looking at?" she murmured, noticing my stare. A blush crept up her cheeks, but this time she didn't look away. I pulled her into my arms, my senses filled with the clean, fresh scent of her skin after a shower. Her lips were unbelievably soft, like a sweet marshmallow. My hand traced the curve of her waist, my fingertips brushing against the warm skin beneath her nightgown. Claire let out a soft moan, the corners of her eyes turning a seductive shade of pink, as if she'd been thoroughly teased. The nightgown had been pushed up to her thighs, revealing a large expanse of pale skin. My fingers hooked onto the strap of her gown, and just as I was about to pull it down, she pressed her hand over mine. "Wait." Her voice trembled slightly. "Ethan, don't." I snapped back to reality and quickly let go, helping her straighten her nightgown. Claire bit her lower lip, her eyelashes fluttering. The combination of innocence and allure was enough to make my heart race. "I got a little carried away," I said, feeling a bit awkward as I gently caressed her earlobe. "And that's not what I meant," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm already your fiancée. You can touch me. Why, you can touch me anywhere." She paused, then pushed me gently, her face beet red. "Go take a shower first, then come find me in my room." Her words were like a spark, igniting a fire in my blood. 3 minutes later, I burst into her bedroom, haphazardly drying my hair, and tackled her onto the bed. "What's the rush?" Claire exclaimed, reaching up to touch my still dripping hair. "You'll catch a cold." I obediently went to blow-dry my hair. When I returned, Claire was leaning against the headboard. In the soft light, her skin looked like polished jade. A tiny red mole was visible near her collarbone, rising and falling with her gentle breaths. Our breathing grew heavy in the silence. Her eyes were half closed, her long lashes casting shadows on her cheeks. There was no resistance, only shy anticipation. I leaned down and kissed her, feeling her arms wrap around my neck, pulling me closer. "So obedient," I chuckled, gently pinching her cheek. Claire didn't say anything, just buried her face in the crook of my neck. Her warm breath on my skin sent a shiver down my spine. She whispered in my ear, her voice soft and tender. "Ethan, you can continue now." The night was long. When everything finally settled, Claire was curled up in my arms like a contented kitten, her pajamas soaked with sweat. Her voice was a little hoarse. "I'm thirsty." I got up, poured a glass of warm water, and carefully helped her drink. Droplets clung to her lips, glistening seductively in the light. "How do you have so much energy?" she murmured, her eyes fluttering sleepily. "Aren't you tired?" "I'm tired," I said, wiping the water from her lips with my sleeve. But I have to take care of you, don't I? Claire hummed in satisfaction, her eyelids growing heavy. I gently patted her cheek. Take a shower before you sleep. I don't have the energy, she mumbled, her voice thick with sleep and affection. I'll help you. Her face flushed again, but she nodded meekly. In the steamy bathroom, her body was breathtakingly beautiful. I fought back the urge to start all over again, quickly washed her, and wrapped her tempting form in a large towel. Back in bed, Claire was asleep almost the instant her head hit the pillow. I gently pulled her into my arms, looking at her peaceful face, and couldn't resist placing a soft kiss on her forehead. You little enchantress, I whispered, a profound sense of contentment washing over me. Moonlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a silver glow on her. As I watched her, I realized this wasn't just a world from a novel, and this wasn't just a transmigrator's fantasy fling. I was truly, deeply in love with this woman named Claire Sterling. Her strength, her vulnerability, the way her ears turned red when she was shy, the hazy look in her eyes when she was aroused. Every part of her fascinated me. I tightened my arms, pulling her closer. In her sleep, Claire unconsciously snuggled deeper into my embrace, letting out a soft, satisfied sigh. Outside, the early summer breeze rustled through the trees. On this ordinary yet extraordinary night, two hearts were closer than they had ever been. I leaned against the headboard, one arm wrapped gently around Claire's waist, the other scrolling through my phone, arranging company matters. The woman in my arms stirred, letting out a soft, kitten-like whimper. MMM. She rubbed her eyes and yawned, then turned to look at the bright sunlight streaming through the window. What time is it? 3:30 in the afternoon, I said, leaning down to kiss the top of her head. Claire, shut up. What? Her expression turned to one of pure panic. Oh no, I'm late for work. I couldn't help but laugh, giving her pert backside a gentle pat. It's Saturday, my love. She let out a long sigh of relief and collapsed back into my arms, nuzzling against my chest like a lazy cat. I instinctively pulled her closer, my fingertips tracing light circles on her waist. While getting ready, Claire gasped at her reflection in the mirror. Ethan, she pointed at the constellation of love bites on her neck, glaring at me. How am I supposed to show my face in public? I blinked innocently. Weren't you the one who said, anywhere is okay last night? Her face turned the color of a ripe apple as she threw a towel at my face. In the end, she had to dig out a turtleneck sweater to hide the evidence of our passion. At the table, I served the brunch I had prepared, or rather, afternoon tea at this point. There were eggs, bacon, toast, Claire's favorite blueberry yogurt, and even some chicken soup. Someone's in a good mood today, huh? I said, smiling as I watched her sip her yogurt. She wrinkled her delicate nose and let out a little huff. I wonder who was acting like a wild animal all night. The moment the words were out, she blushed and started viciously poking the egg on her plate. I scratched my head awkwardly and quickly changed the subject. Do you want to go out today? Claire shook her head, her long hair swaying. I don't want to move. Let's just stay home. So we spent a lazy afternoon together. She leaned against me, reading a financial magazine, while I continued to flesh out the plans for the gaming company. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a warm patch of light on the carpet. What are you working on, Ethan? She asked curiously, leaning in closer. Her hair tickled my shoulder, carrying the faint scent of her shampoo. That little company of mine. We're planning to develop a few new games, I said, showing her the design mock-ups on my screen. Claire's eyes lit up. Really? She leaned over and planted a kiss on my cheek. I support you. Even though she was more than capable of supporting me financially, the undisguised pride in her eyes when she saw me pursuing my own career was priceless. Being supported so unconditionally made my heart feel warm and full. For the next 2 days, we were both busy. I poured nearly all my time into game development, and Claire had a backlog of documents to get through. At night, I held back, simply holding her as we slept. I was worried she might still be sore after our first time. On the third night, however, Claire sat on the edge of the bed, looking sullen. What's wrong? I put my laptop aside and went to her, gently pinching her cheek. She pouted, an unconscious gesture that was unbearably cute. Lately, you've just been holding me when we sleep. Her voice got smaller and smaller. You don't do. other things anymore. I was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing. I was just worried you were still uncomfortable. You just don't like me as much as you did before, she declared, suddenly pouncing on me and pinching my waist. The gesture was gentle but insistent. I'm not happy. I turned the tables, cupping her soft face in my hands and gently stretching her cheeks. What nonsense are you talking about? I don't care. Her ears and neck turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. She grabbed a pillow, jumped off the bed, and ran to the door. She paused, turned around, and said, I'm going to punish you. I raised an eyebrow. What's the punishment? Making me kneel on a keyboard. Her answer was the click of the lock. She had locked herself out. I stared at the closed door, caught between laughter and disbelief. What kind of punishment was this? This was practically a reward. In the middle of the night, half asleep, I felt something wriggling in the bed next to me. I opened my eyes to see Claire's sparkling gaze. Like a cat that had snuck into the cream, she was carefully burrowing her way into my arms. It's late, I said, glancing at my phone. Don't you have work tomorrow? Her cheeks were flushed as she said defiantly, You go to sleep. I'm just going to cuddle for a little while. With that, she slipped her cold feet between my legs and wrapped herself around me like an octopus. I sighed with a mix of helplessness and affection and pulled her close. So this is what they meant about a man's work never being done. The next morning, Claire was up and about, full of energy, even humming a tune as she made breakfast. I lay in bed like a depleted battery, watching her vibrant silhouette and contemplating my life choices. She's this formidable at 25. What's she going to be like at 35? Good morning, Ethan, she chirped, turning around with her apron on, giving me a dazzling smile. Breakfast is on the table. Don't forget to eat. I gave a weak nod, making a silent resolution. Starting today, my workout routine was getting a serious upgrade. I was enjoying the breakfast Claire had prepared when a shrill, angry voice from outside shattered the tranquility of our upscale neighborhood. What's going on? I frowned. How could there be someone screaming like that here? I walked to the door and froze. The person hysterically shouting outside the iron gate was none other than Jessica Evans. Her hair was a mess, her makeup was smeared, and she had none of the elegance of the novel's original heroine. It's all Ethan's fault, she shrieked. You knew that multinational was a shell company, didn't you? You set me up. When she saw me, Jessica lunged at the gate as if I were her last hope. Ethan, help me. My family's company is going bankrupt. I thought to myself, aren't you the heroine? Why aren't you looking for the hero? Why are you bothering me, the villain? Then it hit me. Maybe the Evans family went bankrupt so quickly she never even had the chance to meet the hero. Claire had appeared behind me, her arms crossed, her expression clearly saying, You made this mess, you clean it up. I quickly texted security and then turned to Claire with an innocent look. Are you okay? Is this a friend of yours? Why would you be friends with someone like this? Claire was so taken aback by my attempt to shift the blame that she almost laughed, her big eyes wide with accusation. I don't know her, I said, holding up my hands defensively. Jessica's eyes widened in disbelief. Ethan, you said you loved me. You're just like the rest of them, a total liar. I'm giving you one last chance. If you don't help me, I'm never accepting anything from you again. Claire and I just stared at each other, stunned by her astounding level of shamelessness. You signed a contract voluntarily, I said, waving my phone. I can help you, but I want 51% of the company's shares. Claire pinched me in surprise. Are you a mobster? But her eyes were glinting with approval. You heard him. My Ethan says he doesn't know you. Claire's voice turned icy. Now get lost. Jessica seemed terrified of Claire, but still looked at me with pleading eyes. Just then, security arrived. I immediately put on a stern face. What kind of job are you people doing? Letting any crazy person in here? The head of security looked aggrieved. I was the one who had given instructions to let Ms. Evans in before. As she was being dragged away, Jessica was still screaming, Ethan, I hate you. You'll regret this. Tisk, I shook my head. That would be the last time I saw Jessica Evans in person. The next time her name crossed my radar, it would be in a tabloid headline about her being caught as a mistress by the man's wife. I turned to find Claire with her arms still crossed, her gaze sharp and questioning. I grinned and reached for her. Why were you so quick to get rid of her, Claire? She blushed, and slapped my hand away. What are you doing in broad daylight? You weren't saying that last night, I teased. Claire smoothed her collar and rolled her eyes. Have you ever heard of the Count of Monte Cristo? If you desire something, you must set it free. If it returns to you, it's yours. If it doesn't, it never was. In this world, there is neither happiness nor misery. There is only the comparison of one state with another. Her words warmed my heart. But when she followed up with, if you had chosen Jessica, I would have gone home to sharpen my knives, a chill went down my spine, and I immediately pledged my undying loyalty. You'll get your reward tonight, she said, giving me a meaningful look. I couldn't help but mutter, are you sure you're rewarding me and not yourself? Claire just huffed. That's not your concern, she said, getting in her car and heading to the office. After she left, Claire posted a message online. Anyone who lends money to the Evans Corporation is making an enemy of the Sawyer family. The message exploded across New York's elite circles. Everyone was talking about how the Evans Corporation had been foolish enough to cross the Sawyers. They were finished. When the Evans family heard the news, they immediately called Jessica. Her parents screamed at her. We told you to ask for help, not to make things worse. Chaos erupted at the Evans Corporation headquarters. Other companies started terminating their contracts, willing to pay hefty penalties just to distance themselves. And just like that, the once prominent Evans Corporation collapsed in a single day. After seeing Claire off, I drove to the city's Diamond District. On the way, I saw the novel's original hero running a hot dog stand on a street corner. It seemed the plot really had changed. He never became a security guard. At Montgomery Gems, I immediately spotted the lot of uncut stones that held the prize. It was the largest, ugliest, most unassuming one. To the astonishment of everyone present, I threw down $50 million and bought out the entire store's inventory of raw stones. As people whispered about the fool with more money than sense, I calmly instructed them to start cutting the stones on site. When a flawless, top-grade imperial green jadeite was revealed, the entire room gasped. Chloe Montgomery, the owner's daughter, offered to buy it back for $100 million, and I readily agreed. Send the rest of that scrap to my penthouse, I said, pointing to the ugly corner lot. My turtle needs something to climb on. The onlookers nearly choked. Spending millions on scrap rock for a turtle? That was a new level of eccentric wealth. Back at the penthouse, I immediately called the Sawyer family's master gem cutter. When he carefully cut open the scrap and revealed a flawless, billion-dollar lavender jadeite, his eyes almost popped out of his head. Mr. Sawyer, aren't you excited? The craftsman asked, his voice trembling. I shrugged. Why would I be? Just then, Claire called. Ethan, you found an imperial green, and you didn't keep it. It would have made beautiful bracelets for my mother and yours. Then her tone shifted. The whole city is talking about the fool who bought out a gem store. Was that you? I laughed at myself, then said mysteriously, I have a gift for you tonight. After hanging up, I instructed the craftsman to continue. When Claire got home from work and saw the enormous lavender jadeite, her eyes went wide. Where did you steal that from? It's for you, I said softly, to make you a full set of jewelry, plus a bracelet for your mother and one for mine. Claire's eyes lit up, shining like they were filled with stars. So it was true, a woman's eyes really could sparkle. I rubbed my hands together. So, about that reward tonight, can we postpone it a day? Absolutely not, she said, rejecting my plea without a second's hesitation. She stood by the bed, hugging a pillow, her eyes shining brighter than any gem. You're not getting any sleep tonight. The next morning, I woke up first. Claire was draped over me, her arms wrapped around my neck, one leg having kicked the blankets off entirely. I tried to sit up, but she just held on tighter. Time to get up, I said, pinching her nose. No, she whined, scrunching up her face. Didn't we say we were going to give the bracelets to our mothers today? She mumbled a sleepy oh, but continued to lounge in bed for another 10 minutes before finally sitting up, rubbing her messy hair and glaring at me. The little minx had a serious case of morning grumpiness. Hurry up, I said, try not to laugh. She suddenly turned the tables on me. It's all your fault for not letting me rest properly last night. You got some nerve saying that. I shot back, amused. Who was it that was ready to eat me alive last night? Claire was speechless, her ears turning bright red. I smiled and smoothed her hair. After a quick breakfast, we drove to the Sawyer family estate. Mom, Dad, we're home. Pushing open the doors to the estate, the familiar scent of sandalwood filled the air. Inside, my grandmother, wearing her reading glasses, and my mother, Helen, were smiling at us. When Claire proudly presented the lavender bracelets, the two women were speechless with delight. My mother, Helen, immediately pulled me into a hug, her hand on my cheek. You've gotten thinner. Hasn't Claire been taking good care of you? A warmth spread through my chest. The original Ethan was so spoiled, but now all that affection was mine. Good boy, my grandmother said, holding my hand, her eyes glistening. Mom, Claire protested, blushing. It's his own fault for working so hard. My father, Robert, stood by, a rare smile on his stern face. He clapped my shoulder. You rascal. Those games from Luna Entertainment. That was you, wasn't it? I nodded, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw my mother and Claire look at each other in confusion. Luna Entertainment? My mother asked Claire. Is that one of our subsidiaries? I don't remember it. Claire's eyes widened. Don't tell me it's that little company I have. I remember putting some money into it to keep Ethan happy. Before she could finish, our attention was drawn to the trending topics online. Hashtag Luna Entertainment 3 games top global charts. Hashtag Realm of Legends breaks the 1 download record. Hashtag Apex Predator revolutionizes shooter genre. Oh my god. Claire's mouth formed a perfect O as she frantically scrolled through her phone. Ethan, you did all this? I tried to act nonchalant, ruffling her hair. It was all right. Just something I threw together. Claire suddenly threw her arms around my neck and planted a loud kiss on my cheek. That's amazing. She froze, realizing what she'd done, and her face turned a deep shade of crimson. The living room was suddenly filled with a chorus of coughs. My grandfather, father, and mother all pretended they hadn't seen anything, but the smiles on their faces gave them away. Ahem. I clear my throat to break the awkward silence. Claire brought gifts for everyone. That seemed to snap Claire out of her daze. She fumbled in her bag and pulled out an exquisite wooden box. Grandpa, this is the ivory chess set you've always wanted. My grandfather, George Sawyer, took the set, stroking the pieces lovingly. Good girl. Very thoughtful. Dad, this is a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle, Claire said, producing a bottle of rare bourbon. My father, Robert, took the bottle, his stern expression softening. Now, this is more like it. He paused, then frowned. But your company name isn't aggressive enough. My mother, Helen, snorted. It's better than your Dominion Enterprises. I nearly spit out my tea. Dominion Enterprises? What kind of dated, over-the-top name was that? My father's face darkened. What? It's not sophisticated enough for you. Very sophisticated. The entire family chimed in unison, even my grandfather nodding along. At dinner, my mother couldn't stop piling food onto mine and Claire's plates. Steamed sea bass, barbecue ribs, crab-stuffed tofu. All our favorites. Eat up, my mother said, her eyes a little red. You're both too thin. My heart warmed. In the novel, when the original Ethan fought with his family over Jessica, his mother had cried just like this, begging him to come to his senses. But now, here we were, a happy family, with no misunderstandings or conflicts. The meal lasted for 3 hours. We talked about games, business, and the future. Claire sat next to me, chiming in with sharp insights. Her business acumen was so precise that even my father nodded in approval. When we left, my mother held our hands, reluctant to let go. Come back for dinner often, you hear? We will, Mom, I said, giving her a hug. On the way home, Claire leaned on my shoulder, her fingers toying with the hem of my shirt. Are you happy? I asked softly. She nodded, then looked up at me. Ethan, you've changed so much. My heart skipped a beat. You don't like the new me? No. She shook her head, her eyes shining. The new you is perfect. I couldn't help but lean down and kiss her. Her lips were soft and sweet, with a hint of wine. She gently pushed me away. We're in the car. I laughed and let her go. So we'll continue at home. Claire blushed and pinched my arm, but she didn't say no. In the darkness, the Porsche glided smoothly home. The streetlights flashed by, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow on her delicate profile. I suddenly thought of the original novel's ending. The Sawyer family bankrupt, the original Ethan dead from starvation, Claire fleeing to a foreign country. But now everything had changed. Luna Entertainment would become a tech giant, the Sawyer family would reach new heights, and Claire and I looked at the woman beside me. She was gazing at the city lights, a gentle smile on her lips. We were going to be happy. Forever. 3 months later, I sat in the CEO's office of what was now the Luna Sawyer Group, buried under a mountain of files. Ever since Claire discovered my shocking talent for business, she had happily dumped Sawyer Holdings on me as well. Her excuse? She wanted to be the pampered wife of the domineering CEO. Ha ha ha. A peal of laughter echoed from the living room. I looked up to see Claire curled up on the sofa, popping nuts in her mouth while watching some mindless soap opera, laughing her head off. The sunlight streamed through the window, and through her loose-fitting clothes, I could see the slight curve of her belly. "Claire," I said, tapping the pile of files with a desperate look. "These?" She turned her head lazily, her eyes squinted. "Are the files done?" Before I could answer, she patted the empty spot next to her. "Come on, come into the room with me." I clung to the doorframe for dear life. "They're not done. It's only 9 o'clock. Before I could finish, she shot up, grabbed me like I was a sack of potatoes, and dragged me into the bedroom, slamming the door shut. Late that night, as I held Claire's warm body, a thought struck me. "Claire, you haven't had your period in a while, have you?" Her eyes snapped open. "You mean?" Her hand instinctively went to her stomach. "Could you be pregnant?" I sat up, my heart pounding with excitement. "I'm not sure," she said, biting her lip, a hopeful light in her eyes. "We should have the doctor come check tomorrow." We held each other all night, too excited to sleep. The next morning, the family doctor arrived with her medical bag. After a quick examination, she handed us the report with a smile. "Congratulations. You're about 2 months pregnant, and it's twins." "Really?" Claire and I exclaimed at the same time, our voices trembling. I immediately shoved a thick red envelope into the doctor's hand. She tried to refuse. "This is against the rules. It's just for your medical fee," I insisted. After the doctor left, I canceled all my appointments and rushed Claire to the family estate. "Mom," I yelled as soon as I walked in, "you're going to be a grandmother." My mother, Helen, dropped her teacup. She rushed over, her trembling hand touching Claire's stomach. "Really?" Claire nodded, blushing. "It's twins." My mother immediately pulled out her phone. "Old man, get your butt back here in 10 minutes, or you'll face the consequences." 9 minutes later, my father, Robert, burst into the house, out of breath. "What's wrong?" I was in the middle of a meeting. "We're adding new members to the family," my mother announced proudly. "Claire's pregnant," my grandmother cried, nearly fainting with joy. "Twins," Claire added shyly. My grandfather slapped his thigh. "Excellent. Hopefully a boy and a girl. The Sawyer family has had only sons for generations. We've never had a girl. We'll love them no matter what," I said, wrapping my arm around Claire's shoulders. My father suddenly remembered something. "Wait, legally, Claire is still registered as our daughter." He turned to my grandfather. "Dad, we need to pick a date to remove her from the family registry and then send out the wedding invitations." My grandfather consulted a calendar. 3 days from now is a very auspicious day. For the next few days, my mother was a whirlwind of activity, planning the wedding. In just 3 days, a lavish traditional wedding was ready. When I, dressed in a magnificent red robe, saw Claire walking towards me in her phoenix coronet and gown, my eyes grew misty. "Mom," Claire called out sweetly during the tea ceremony. "Yes," my mother beamed, handing her a thick red envelope. That night, in our new room, we sat cross-legged on the bed, counting red envelopes until our fingers cramped. "Wifey," I said, suddenly tackling her onto the bed. "No," she pushed me away, blushing. "The doctor said we can't for the first 3 months." "I know," I grinned, leaning close to her ear. "Just call me husband once." "Husband," she whispered, her voice barely audible, but it sent a thrill through me. Even though we couldn't go any further, just holding the woman I loved as we slept was the greatest happiness in the world. Months flew by, and soon, Claire's due date arrived. We had been staying at the family estate, as my mother was convinced I was too clumsy to take care of a pregnant woman properly. In the middle of the night, Claire pushed me awake. "Honey, I think it's time." I shot out of bed like a rocket, running barefoot into the hall. Mom, Claire's going into labor. What are you screaming about? My mother appeared, pulling on a robe. Hurry up and get her to the delivery room. In a newly built delivery suite at the estate, doctors and nurses were already on standby. Outside, the entire family paced nervously. When the doctor came out, I rushed forward shouting, "Save her! You have to save her!" The doctor looked at me, bewildered. I haven't even said anything. The patient needs some food to keep her strength up. Do you have anything? I ran to get Claire's favorite nuts, but my mother slapped my hand away. You foolish boy. She can't eat that while giving birth. My grandfather couldn't take it anymore. Ethan, calm down. My father put on a stern face. Show some composure. Oomph, my grandfather retorted. When Helen was in labor with you, you were so nervous you broke the doorknob off the delivery room door. My father fell silent, embarrassed. Finally, two loud cries echoed from the delivery room. A nurse came out, holding two bundles. Congratulations, it's a boy and a girl. To my surprise, the entire family spoke in unison. How's Claire? The nurse was stunned. She was used to families who cared more about the children than the mother. This reaction brought a tear to her eye. Mother and babies are all fine. Only then did I finally look at my children, making little cooing sounds. My mother slapped the back of my head. Get out of the way. Don't scare my grandchildren. I rushed into the delivery room, seeing Claire's pale face and sweat-soaked hair. I couldn't hold back my tears. Honey, she smiled weakly. I'm fine. Just need to sleep. I gently kissed her forehead and smoothed her messy hair. 100 days later, Claire was finally free from her confinement. On a sunny afternoon, she stood in the courtyard, holding our daughter. Honey, go get Leo and Lily. We're taking a family photo. Coming, I called out, holding our son in one arm and helping my grandfather with the other. My mother and father stood on either side, and my grandmother held her great-granddaughter, beaming. Click! The camera captured the perfect happy moment. Claire leaned against my shoulder, her eyes full of starlight. The end.